This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba, welcome everyone. We continue in the Orchos Chaim of the Rosh. We're up to Ois Kuf Chaf Beis, Kuf Chaf Gimel, Kuf Chaf Beis. Al Tichas Be'ishtecha. Do not be angry. Do not get angry at your wife. Ve'im rachakta oisa b'smoil, karev b'yamin b'loy ichor. If you have pushed her away with your left hand, bring her close with your right hand without delay. Now, what is the Rosh saying? Don't get angry at your wife. We already know you can't get angry at anybody. In Ois Vav, the Rosh said, "Misrachik min kas." So, what's the Rosh adding? Clearly, he's adding there's a special azhara to get angry at one's wife, because it's more frequent, and she is meshubed to you, and we're concerned maybe therefore you'll be makbid with her and you'll come to anger. You know, we find that Rachel Imenu, she said after Yosef was born, Asaf Elokim es charpasi, God has gathered in my shame. Rashi says, so long as a wife doesn't have a son, there's no one to put the blame on. Once she has a son, she could put the blame on him. Who broke the kli? Your son. Who ate the figs? Your son. So we see even in the house of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, there was a chashash, maybe they'll come to hakpada, even a small hakpada, and that could cause a lack of shalom bayis, and therefore the Rachel said, Baruch Hashem, I'm not subject to that anymore. Asaf Hashem es charpasi. Now this idea that if you pushed away your wife with your left hand, you should bring her close with your right hand, comes from the Gemara in Sotah Daf Mem Zayin, where the Gemara says, Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, the Yetzer Hara, a child and a woman, you should push them with their left hand and bring them close with the right hand. By the way, it's been suggested by Reb Simcha Wasserman, if you push someone with your left hand and bring them close with the right hand, you turn them around. You turn them into a different person. But anyway, Rashi says, a woman, she's daitan kala, v'im yirdefu teitza tarbasra. There's a danger that a woman might veer off and venture off into forbidden territory if she feels being rejected. Now, what do Chazal mean? You should push away with your left hand and bring close with your right hand. Simply, it means it's to teach that you need to bring close more than you need to distance. And every time you distance, even for a purpose, you have to make sure to bring close, where the person feels that the bringing close is more than the casting away. And that's how the Rabbi Tzal Zolti explains it. It's somewhat difficult, says Rav Goldberg, because Rashi says that when it says Small doicha v'yimin mekarev l'gabe the Yetzer Hara, it's referring to tashmish hamita, meaning don't cast it away completely, but bring it close with your right hand. Don't be disgusted b'pirya v'rivya. And it would seem, says Rav Goldberg, that one should definitely refrain and curtail the Yetzer Hara for relations more than he draws it close. And therefore, Rav Goldberg goes on to say that small doicha v'yimin mekarev means an attitude. Small refers to midas hadin, yamin refers to midas harachamim, and the kavana is don't push it away with two hands, but you need some kind of confluence of midas hadin and midas harachamim. So this is a special admonition. Don't get angry, but especially don't get angry at one's wife. And if there was a need to push away with your left hand, you need to bring close with your right hand. And in a sense, you need to bring close even more than you need to push. And then the Rosh adds, Ois Kuf Chav Gimel, Al Tivaze es ishtecha, do not shame your wife. Utechabed oisa, honor her. Now, obviously, if you're going to honor her, then you can't shame her. So it seems like it's saying not only should you not disparage your wife, but you even need to go beyond that. You need to honor her, v'tisirenu min hachet, and steer her away, remove her from sin. Now, the reason why it's so important to honor your wife, let's go back to the previous statement for a moment where the Rosh said you need to bring her close without delay. The Gemara says in Soita, a man and a woman, if they are Zoicha, the Shechina resides among them. And therefore, when there's Shalom Bayis, there is Hashras HaShechina. And when there's no Shalom Bayis, then the Shechina is far. And that's why Rachel was so pleased when Asaf Hashem Eschar Pasi, Baruch Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom has gathered my shame. Because if there would be any lack of Shalom Bayis in the house of Yaakov and Rachel, then what would happen would be a lack of Shechina. And if somebody broke a mug, and we have no one to blame it on, and if there's some element of blame on Rachel, then it's going to be a lack of Hashras HaShechina. So Rachel was so happy, Baruch Hashem, now the next time something breaks, we'll blame it on my kid, and it will preserve the Shalom, and if we preserve the Shalom, it will increase and enhance the Hashras HaShechina. So we see how easy, how tenuous Shalom Bayis is, even for Yaakov and Rachel. If something would break in the house, it could potentially disturb the peace, and now that there is someone to blame it on, namely a kid, then it would preserve the Shalom and preserve the Hashras HaShechina. Now, the Rosh said in Ois Kuf Chav Gimel, do not disparage your wife, honor her. Questions, you're not allowed to disparage anybody. You can't shame anybody. And obviously, if you need to honor her, you can't disparage her. So just say honor her. So the Rav Goldberg says what the Rosh means here is that since you need to honor her, if you don't do that, you have to be concerned that she's going to feel that you're disgracing her. You have an obligation to honor your wife, and if you don't honor your wife, it's like shaming her. So therefore the Rosh says, don't shame her and honor her because it's dependent one on the other. And then the Rosh ends off, remove her from sin. Meaning, often a wife may act inappropriately or not stay on the Derech HaYashar because to a certain degree she feels that she's rejected or not appreciated. And the way to ensure that one's wife stays b'derech HaTorah is by properly honoring her. In fact, that's how the Tosfos Yom Tov interprets it. Do not shame your wife at all. Honor her, and by doing so, you will keep her away from sin. Rabbi Zolti explains it a little bit differently. That even though we just said, don't shame your wife and honor her, but don't think, okay, so I see her doing something inappropriate, maybe I shouldn't say anything, maybe I shouldn't steer her correctly, because after all I have to honor her, I can't shame her. No, you need to balance the need to honor her and not shame her with the obligation of steering her on the right path. Rabbi Zolti brings the Chazal that be a mevater in your house. Something spills, so gam zula toiva. Your oil goes sour, gam zula toiva. But if your wife's doing something improper, you have to steer her right. So that's the juxtaposition over here. We said in Kuf Chav Beis, don't get angry at your wife. And don't shame her. And honor her. But on the other hand, in Yonah Yira Shamayim, don't be so forgiving. But rather, you need to steer her in the right path. But again, make sure not to shame her, and it has to be b'derech kavod. But in that context, and in that procedure, and in that approach of not shaming her and honoring her and not getting angry at her, you also have to steer her in the right path. Okay, Mar Rabbi, say thanks everyone for joining. Tomorrow there will not be Orchos Chaim of the Rosh, have a wedding. We'll continue Bez Hashem Wednesday, Kuf Chav Daled. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Kol Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.